What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Bros podcast, episode 3. I started doing some reading, and I'll explain why shortly. And I came across this quote I wanted to use tonight. When good friends Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau reunited after a long separation, each would ask his colleague, "What has become clearer to you since we last met?" So, Jose and Miguel, I want to ask you, what has become clearer to you since we last podcasted? Jose, you want to start?
Do I want to start? No, but I suppose I will. What has become clearer to me? I think the one thing that has become the most clear is that there are other forces at play within our political sphere. And I feel like we always kind of knew that. We always know, but it's never been so obvious. And what I'm referring to most is the power play that happened when the AP and all the other news networks unanimously decided that, okay, all the superdelegates were going to go for Hillary Clinton the day before. It was just too convenient. And again, I don't want to take anything away from Hillary Clinton's achievement, but it just left a bad taste in my mouth. That's the way it happened, because it happened right before California had voted, so it's almost like they wanted to derail that momentum on either side, to be honest. They just derailed the momentum of voters in general. So that's what became very clear to me. But
hot potato. Miguel?
I was actually going to go with that. I don't want to cop out.
You can expand
something.
No. You can expand on it or give us your take on how you felt.
Okay, yeah. I mean, more along the same lines. I know this runs contrary to what we were just talking about before we started recording, but I didn't want to get too heavy into politics this week, given what's been going on. But yeah, it's I guess it's more clear to me now how progressive the DNC is not, and the Democratic Party as a whole. And I think it's most evident in voter suppression that we saw this week. And also and we'll talk about this at greater length later on in the episode, but Andrew Cuomo's sort of, anti-BDS movement. So, yeah. How about you, Dino?
Well, so I started taking administrative courses. I'm hoping to move up into a different position within education. And something that did become clear to me is just how long-standing and continuous the achievement gap is between white students and brown and black students. No matter what has been done, whether it's Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which was initially the movement to try to let's say save these students, or the No Child Left Behind Act. Neither one has done the job. We're trying other methods now, but that achievement gap is there, and it is bad. Yeah, and it's bad. Gap.
Wow.
So yeah,
should we just go right into that and start talking about that?
I think so.
Okay. From what standpoint are we talking about that now? Expanding on what I just said, or do we want to talk about the valedictorian who just completely bashed that achievement gap with a 4.5 GPA?
Yeah, why don't we talk a little bit about it and then sort of come around to that at the end?
Okay. All right. So what about individual experiences? Let's start there.
Sure.
Miguel and I went to the same school district. So to say we may not have been exposed to that achievement gap because there was a high diversity inside of our school district. So it would have been difficult as far as statistics go to have shown that, I believe. I don't know. What do you think, Miguel?
I would say that's correct. But then we were also exposed to so Long Island is very segregated, right?
Yeah.
And you have communities like Brentwood and CI where there's the demographics are 60-something% Latino. I think it might be even more than that now, 70% or something like that.
Possible.
Yeah. Then you have other neighborhoods that are, 90% white. So I think if you look at it in terms of, we didn't go to class, let's say, with some of these people, but they were still in our neighborhoods, sort of.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then being somebody who grew up in Long Island, went to high school in Long Island, and then went to a university in Long Island, that connection was much more apparent to me. And so a lot of the students there, Stony Brook is a big commuter school, so a lot of the students there were from Long Island, and so I was able to see that much more clearly. So yeah, what was your experience, Jose? Do you have any?
With now, what grade are we talking here exactly?
Let's go high school. Let's just go high school from there, because that's not the only point, but we can start there. I guess the closer experience, or the most pleasant experience.
Well, man, it's funny because high school for me, it was well over like 10, almost 15 years ago. I don't even remember. I can't do math. It's funny. I went to the Bronx High School of Science. Funny, I didn't know we were going to talk about it, but this is the shirt. And so I went there. It's a little different because it's a specialized high school, and you get there, you take a test to get in or whatever. And so we're talking about the achievement gap between races, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, they will. So the conversation usually gets redirected into class. Will end up being
class.
Upper class, middle class, working class, and those people, the communities that are poverty stricken. So why don't you speak from that standpoint?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is that in terms of class came into resources. Class came into who could stay late, and do programs, extracurriculars, that sort of thing. Who had more resources for supplies. That always came. It was extra barriers to sort of overcome. But I feel like parental involvement. But I feel like to get to that point was beyond. I think a lot of the gap for me that could have happened earlier on.
Yeah, it seems like that
early on
with your application to the high school, right?
I'm talking first grade. I'm talking like right after kindergarten. Like in kindergarten, the teacher somewhere signaled me out. They were like, your student. They told my parents, your son has, they see something in me. He has like a talent, so they put me in like a gifted program. That's what they called it. EG. They called it the gifted program, and it was like a tract. And they took different people because I went to public school, and they put them on a track. And they got the better teachers. They got the better workload or whatever, more challenging. And that's just the track that I continued. And because of that, I think that's what sort of led me towards the specialized high schools and beyond. Okay. Had I not fallen into that, I don't know where I would be right now. I wouldn't have gotten the resources. Like all of my peers, even at the same schools where they had this gifted program, you could see the drop off in terms of class. So I think early education is super important. If you fall off the track like early on, it's so hard to get back in.
So that resources thing that you mentioned, Miguel, might have played into our experience that we wouldn't have known as students. But there were probably resources that were denied to us because we were such a heavily populated Black and Latino community, that we may not have received resources that neighboring school districts would have received. East Islip, I don't know, or Babylon. So we were probably not exposed to it because we didn't know. We just weren't aware of those things. But perhaps the administrators or the educators in our building would have known, like, oh, these kids are not receiving X, Y, and Z because they are living in Brentwood. So that there's a chance that we might have just missed how the achievement gap affected our education. Right.
I think with Jose's point about class, though, I think that also came to play in Brentwood, in that although Brentwood is a 70% or greater, right, Latino school district, it's not the same across the board. You have different communities of Latino. You have a Puerto Rican community that's been around for much longer than the Central American community. I happen to belong to both of those communities. but yeah, but I think I think he also saw that was evident in sort of the way. I mean, what would you say, Dito? Would you say there was sort of like a hard line between Puerto Rican students and maybe Central American students and the resources that were afforded to them, or
yeah. So what I remember specifically are any immigrant students in Brentwood were subjected to that one hallway on the second floor of Ross, and then that was their experience, right? And then for the Puerto Rican student, it was easy to jump between. Not easy. I take that back. Not easy, but
it wasn't easy.
It was likely that you could jump back and forth between hanging out with the white students or hanging out with the black students. There was also a large population, specifically Haitian. So I want to say that Caribbean effect might have had something to do with that being a strong relationship.
I have a question. So a few years ago, I did some brief work at a school in the Bronx, and it was a charter school. Basically, it was a giant high school, but it was split up into many different schools, right? So like a different hallway or a different wing would be a completely different school. It'd be PS something something. Right. And then down the hall is PS something else or IS something else. But when you have all of these different, whether it be schools or programs or different levels of education sort of functioning in the same building, where then at some point these students interact with each other, what kind of tension or what kind of relationship does that build with the students there, knowing that, hey, he's getting a better education than I am.
Right.
And I'm not in the school setting anymore. So I guess, Dito, the question is for you, like, what is that really, like, imagine being someone who isn't getting the resources, even though someone down the hall is.
Okay, so I think that's an unfortunate circumstance. We don't experience that on Long Island. You won't be you won't be isolated into different sections of a building,
right?
Because you're in Brentwood. The scenario I had mentioned earlier. You were still students of Brentwood High School.
Sure.
In that scenario, the one that you just mentioned, you belong to your respective school in that building.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if you're a student who might be in a special ed program who's not receiving the same education that maybe an honors program or a gifted program is having in another school, I would imagine that those students are probably jealous, because although they're not categorized or labeled to be intellectual students, they are intellectual students, and they are realizing that these other students are receiving much more resources and a greater education than they'll receive.
Yeah, I'm sure it creates tremendous resentment. I can't even imagine. 3.14 Pi just joined. 3.1415
just joined.
That derailed me.
It's okay.
And so I think we wanted to talk about that student, right?
Yeah, which is nice, because it's despite, despite. So came across this article. I actually heard it earlier today. But I'll just look at the article on Huffington Post. And so the internet freaks out when high school valedictorian reveals she's undocumented. Can I drop the link here? So if anybody wants to.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I'll pull that up. All right. So in the meantime, the reason we said despite, this young lady was able to achieve a 4.5 GPA. And
4.5. Not 4.0, still the 4.0 scale, but 4.5.
Yeah. And she is also, she's a graduate of Austin, Texas, and she will be attending University of Texas on a full ride. Wow.
Texas. Okay, so this is even more relevant.
Pretty big,
right?
This is pretty big. The state is, it's a border state, right? So we're talking about something that's really important here. So I don't know firsthand what she experienced or what her high school experience was like.
Right.
But whatever it was like, it afforded her to get that, that opportunity. Now where she's going to be attending a school on a full ride. And maybe she had, even if she was afforded all the resources she needed, there might have still been a language barrier, right? There's always that. There might have been the difficulty with having parental involvement, because if since she's undocumented, her parents are probably over here. They're probably working 22 hours out of the day. Who knows, right? So there's a number of possibilities that even if she was given everything she needed inside of the classroom, outside of the classroom may not have been as easy.
Or even the stress, the daily stress, knowing that you are undocumented, that you're living in the shadows, that you can't really tell everyone like all about your life. You have to hide. You have to constantly, be living a weird double life. That's a lot of stress for someone that age.
Tremendous coming out party, though, and I definitely would applaud her on her success, because I think that's miraculous, and we can appreciate that as educated Latinos as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. This ties back to that story where Trump and the Mexican judge, or he calls him the Mexican judge.
Oh, man.
He's involved in this litigation, and he's claiming that the judge was biased against him because he was of Mexican descent. He called him Mexican, but the guy's from Indiana. And he's like, he's part of an organization. I'm building a wall, he said. And he said that like 20 times, that he's building a wall. And it was terrible. And all the media sort of got around him saying that it was racist, because it was. But one thing according to Paul Ryan, definition of racism, but I'm going to support him anyway. I'm still going to get behind the racist. But one point was that he was saying how this judge was part of La Raza, which is the what is it called? It's a lawyers group, basically. Okay. He said that they gave scholarships to undocumented students, and that no, we shouldn't do that. That's why that's why they're bad. I saw a little investigative reporting that showed that they didn't seek out. It's not like they were like, all right, here's our undocumented scholarship award. We have to find one.
Okay.
No, he just happened. It just so happened he was awarded to an undocumented person. But even if it was, it's like I have no problem with undocumented student scholarship. You know why? Because they need the resources.
Right.
If they're allowed to go to school, you know what I mean? If they're allowed to attend college, then why should they be allowed to receive a scholarship?
Right.
I thought the whole point was educating our workforce. And if we want, if this is a brilliant mind, nurture that brilliant mind so that he or she doesn't leave.
Right. Why do we want that brain drain? Yeah. Why do we want them to leave? Isn't that opposed to everything that they think? Why are they going to come and take our resources and then take it back to your own country? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You were going to say something, Miguel. Sorry.
No, where do you start on that line of rhetoric, right? It's designed to sort of bring together a whole group of people that believe that they should have some sort of privilege over others, right? We could talk about that all day, but I'd rather move on to other topics.
I really want to start a scholarship, guys, for undocumented students.
Do you? That's funny that you mentioned scholarship, because we have a guest coming up in about 2 more episodes.
Is it
that we'll be discussing
is it 2 or 1?
It's next week, isn't it?
Oh, is it? It's next week.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
Next week.
So next week, and he'll be speaking about his scholarship efforts and the success that he's had. But I'll save that. Miguel, you mentioned that you would like that we were going to be getting into a conversation about Cuomo, and would love for you to lead that.
Sure. So
I'll drop. Let me get rid of that link.
While you're getting ready with that, I think this is a good time to say congratulations to all the graduates of 2016.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's a big achievement. Whether you're graduating from kindergarten or high school or college, undergrad, or if you just got your doctorate, there's a whole spectrum of achievement here. You did a great thing. We're proud of you. Your parents are proud of you. A lot of people have sacrificed, and keep it up. Keep aiming big. Keep reaching for the stars. Dito, you are still in school, so you have personal experience with students right now.
Yeah, and there's something regarding graduating and entering the workforce or moving on to the next step. I think what's important, and I've always been told this, that we pay it forward in education as well. So like,
right,
pass on what you learn. You know, don't just learn this information and then retain it. If you have it and you know it, it's probably meant to be shared. Probably meant to be shared. So
pass it on. Pass on your knowledge, and also pass on your experience. You know, because at the same time, while we learn, we also make mistakes. We also make a lot of mistakes. So pass those along too, so that the future generations don't repeat all of the mistakes that we made.
So he dropped the article here for he being Miguel dropped the article here. We lost him for a bit. I'm sure he's going to be joining shortly again.
I hope so.
But we'll leave the article there until he's calling back right now. All right.
Hey.
All right. Well, welcome back, Miguel.
Thank you.
Your link is posted. It's up right now. So
cool. Yeah. Just speak a little bit about, if you don't know what BDS is. BDS stands for Boycott, Divest, and Sanction. And what it's about is it's an international campaign to pressure Israel to comply with international law in respect to Palestinian rights. So I'd encourage you to look that up for more information. But what we're talking about today is Governor Cuomo,
right?
And his statement, which is today I'm going to sign an executive order that says very clearly we are against the BDS movement. And it's very simple. If you boycott against Israel, New York will boycott you. If you divert revenues from Israel, New York will divert revenues from you. If you sanction Israel, New York will sanction you, period. We are against the BDS movement in every way. We are against companies that do it. We are against the promotion of it by companies, so on and so forth.
That's some strong rhetoric.
Right. And so I guess the debate is, I guess some people, opponents to BDS, say that it's like disguised anti-Semitism. I'd encourage everybody to listen to Democracy Now.
So you're saying they say that BDS, which is, again, for listeners,
boycott, divest, and sanctions.
Boycott, divestment, sanctions. They say that is anti-Semitism. Camouflage. That's their argument that they're making.
Because what they've done is the BDS movement has encouraged all sorts of organizations and businesses around the world to divest money, mostly, or from doing business with any organization that has ties to Israel.
Sure.
Because of their sort of ambivalence to international law, the refusal to sort of comply with that, and many of the human rights issues. We have bombings of churches and hospitals, mosques, stuff like that. So yeah, what do you guys think about that? And if there are any comments, anybody has anything, please chime in.
Anytime Israel and Palestine is involved, I'm super reluctant to just open my mouth, because I know that I'm not going to know all the details or everything that's going on. It's very sensitive and it's very passionate on both sides, and I'm sure both sides have a point. I think what I will speak to is just sort of the tone of the rhetoric of we're just going to shut you down. If you boycott. I feel like in this country, boycotting is sort of a tradition. It's a tradition. It's a right. More than a tradition, it's something that you're entitled to. You're entitled to do this. So to sort of say that if you do that, then we're just going to bully and push you back. Just that tone, regardless of the issue of whether it's, replace it with B or C, replace it with something else.
Right.
Just the fact that you're silencing people in that regard is a little disturbing. And again, I'm hesitant to like actually side with anyone,
Right.
Because
I wanted to bring attention to this. Basically, you hit it right on the head, because of the rhetoric, because of, more so about what Cuomo is saying, how he's approaching it, and how this is basically legislated, right? This is
it's in the books.
Right. Do you have any comments on that, Dito?
No, actually, much like Jose said, this is always one of those topics that I never really feel comfortable on. However, I am intrigued by the topic. So with
Right.
your link and the listen that you suggested, I will be informing myself. And then can I owe you a comment next week on it?
Yeah, we can get more into it.
If anything, it sparked my interest. I perked up. I was like, what? Okay, we're going to boycott you back. Anytime you hear that, you sort of listen. So I think this requires a little more research.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I guess, you know, what caught my eye is BDS as far as what I know about it, which isn't a whole lot, to be honest. But from what I know about it, it's a movement that's very much more concerned with universal human rights.
Right.
And so for somebody, for a politician or somebody in power to say, you can't oppose this type of organization, a human rights centered based organization, otherwise there will be repercussions, that kind of thing, like the article suggests, reminds you of McCarthyism.
Right.
And so, going back to what we were saying about DNC and, how everything fell out this week with Super Tuesday, it's just something that kind of turns me off from the Democratic Party.
Anytime,
moving on. Oh, sorry.
Anytime that free flow of ideas is stifled, then I think the alerts go off. Anytime you're saying you can't speak about something or you can't express yourself in a certain way, I think we should all become really aware of what's going on, because we don't want our rights to be taken away.
Right. Very true.
One of my favorite quotes that I'm going to misquote now. So how good could it be, right? Is I may not agree with what you're saying, but I will defend to the death your right to say it, and I strongly believe that. Totally. That brings me back. Should I mention the tweet, Hillary's tweet today? Yeah, I shouldn't. It's not even a big deal.
It's there, man. You're ready.
I'm already talking.
Don't be that person that says,
"All right, should I talk about it?" Well, Hillary,
I'm not gonna say it
today, and all the mix. Trump sent out another stupid tweet that he does on a daily basis, saying "crooked Hillary," blah 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 blah, and then Hillary fights back with "delete your account," and then everyone's like, "Woo, Hillary, drop the mic." It bothered me only because of the insinuation of, I don't want you to keep talking. I want you to cut the dialogue. That's all.
Somebody tell G Double he's in a safe place right now for that vote.
I voted Bernie. Woo! That's all. And so it might have been, just to get shock, but still it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then we were talking about how this is sort of the rhetoric that's going to happen. Like this Twitter fight is going to happen all the way through November. And it'll be interesting.
Right.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah, it's
sorry.
I just want to wrap that up and say it's kind of a shame, because we sort of agreed to try not to talk about politics.
It's hard. It's going to be really hard.
Before we start today's episode, which is why we're kind of like dancing around the issues a little bit.
This next topic I'm about to bring up right now, at some point, the politics of situation is going to come up again anyways.
Wee!
Okay. So the greatest passed away.
Yes.
And my question for you two is do we consider Muhammad Ali just an athlete, or Kimbo Slice, just an athlete, or do we consider him a member of American history?
So I actually wanted to pose a question to you, but in doing so, I guess I'll answer yours. And so, so mine is, what was everybody's first experience
with Ali?
Muhammad Ali, right? And I wanted to share mine, but we can go around. And
I'll share mine because it's nothing exciting. I feel like I was too young to remember a first time. I feel like he was always in the mix in the media. Okay. I knew him, I think, first as a boxer, as a heavyweight boxer. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I think that was one of the first things that I heard. This guy was really good at his rhymes and his showmanship. I grew up really liking pro wrestling. I've been watching it since I was like 3. You know, my dad put it on, so I was watching it, and I think he had some intermixing in that world too. You know, like they used him for like WrestleManias or something. I think he was shown with like Hulk Hogan. So that was my first introduction of the showman boxer.
Right.
And then later on is when I learned more of his involvement in American politics and
and Nation of Islam.
Right. I did. Oh, that was the other thing, that he changed his name. That was the other.
Okay.
Did
He
you,
used
as
to
a
be
child,
Cassius.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a child, he used to be
Just wanted to
Cassius Clay, and then he became Muhammad Ali. That was big.
So my first experience, I remember my dad being very fond of the sport when I was young.
Okay.
And I used to look forward to it because that would be my opportunity to stay up late, to watch a boxing match as late as I possibly could before I would fall asleep before the title fight, right? And miss it. But I remember watching some of the like reruns or the replays of the fights from years past, and not being able to be a Mike Tyson fan without understanding the heavyweight champ that came before him.
Right.
And that's how I knew him as a boxer. I knew him as an athlete. It took a while for me to realize just how important he would be, or he was, in American history. That didn't happen until much later on for me.
Right. I think it would be similar, definitely similar for me. This was, I'm just going to play my first experience. My introduction to Ali was actually through a Sega Genesis game. I don't know if anybody recalls.
Let's see it.
But let's just.
So the replay won't have this video, but we're watching.
It doesn't.
YouTube video. No,
copyright stuff.
Oh, that's too bad.
Muhammad Ali.
Do we have the sound on this?
I can point the sound here at the mic.
There it is.
Who's the heavyweight champion of the world?
Heavyweight boxing by Sega. Wow.
And, like, I will forever.
What is this?
Ever remember?
This is a rip, though, no? From Mike Tyson's Punch Out?
I never played that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a rip. Even.
But anyway, so. But it was
I
funny.
think I could watch that for the full 6 minutes for sure.
This is a straight ripoff of Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It's just better than, instead of 16-bit or whatever. I think it's like 32-bit, 64-bit.
and so it's fun. So growing up, right, in a Central American household, like I really wasn't exposed to who Muhammad Ali was. I didn't have that history, but I did see on TV, right, Mike Tyson, and so I kind of grew up thinking like this is such a ripoff or like a sort of cheesy. Sort of like a bootleg Mike Tyson game, right?
Yeah,
and I not actually know who Muhammad Ali was, so it's funny that
that's your first introduction. Yeah, I mean we're all introduced to different things differently,
right?
That's funny. So that was our first introduction. So then, where do we go from there? What were we talking about?
Well, to answer, my initial question was, where does he fall then? For you, is he an athlete? Is he an entertainer because that was first exposure, or is he?
Right. I think like so many, people of color during that time, it's, on the national spotlight, he was so much more than just any one thing. You know what I mean? And just watching some stuff over the last few weeks, since his passing away, it sort of brought to light how amazing he was, right? Not only of an athlete, but then also like his message to the world. And it's kind of sad because just in him sort of refusing to go to war, right? I wish I pulled up some of those quotes so I could read them off. But basically saying like, why would I go overseas to kill Viet Congs? These are my brothers and sisters. Why would I, like, my enemies and over there, my enemies right here in the United States, right? So looking at that now, slightly a bit more informed than I was when I was 11 or 12 years old. It's interesting. I think he's definitely multifaceted and he was quite the icon.
Tito?
Good.
Or you're asking me?
Well,
whoever wants.
Yeah, I'll answer since you already asked me. So I am going to remember him as an athlete because I love sports. But I'm also going to remember him as a trailblazer, and being outspoken and never staying silent, especially in those moments that we either are the victim of a topic of conversation in our presence, or someone around us is being victimized. And he sort of sets the tone of saying, or sets the standard for being for not being silent. Like we have a voice, and we shouldn't be afraid to use it, no matter what the situation is. And I've seen some of those some of those interviews that he was in, and he wasn't always the majority in whatever the location was that he was being interviewed.
Right.
And he very well could have been, injured or or arrested sooner, or mistreated, but he still didn't hold back, and he recognized his platform, his responsibility as being such a great entertainer, and having that spotlight and not letting it pass. So I'm going to remember him for that.
Right.
One of our viewers, GW.
Yeah,
said, so it's something you might know. Where is it? So somewhat symbolic of his political stances and how he led rather than followed. Sort of your point where, he stood up before it was cool to stand up. He dodged the draft before. He got a lot of shit for that. He got a lot of hate.
But he didn't dodge it.
Huh? Oh, but even like putting that forward,
right?
Putting that stance forward, taking a stand. How am I going to remember him? I think it's hard to I can't pigeonhole him. He's all of the above, and someone who's come up again and again. It's rare for an athlete to have that sort of longevity in terms of your influence.
Right.
From very young, and then then he became an icon, and then unfortunately he fell to his disease, and he sort of became kind of a figurehead for that, and even just surviving beyond that. So I think he's a very complex and multifaceted memory, and it's a good life. He lived a great life. He's going to leave a big legacy behind.
If I can just comment a little bit
sure.
about the disease, right? Like from this time period, you see all these people, like exceptional people like Nina Simone, who are these brilliant, magnificent people who basically are blacklisted or made out to be like villains from the mainstream media, and you can see it almost throughout their life tear them apart in terms of physical health. Have you guys seen the Nina Simone documentary?
I have not. I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
Not the film, the documentary, correct?
The documentary, yeah.
I did not see it, but I've been meaning to. Yeah.
If you see that, if you watch that, it gives you a great idea of like how brilliant she was, and then sort of with time how growing up in sort of this white supremacist, very racist society, it sort of tore her apart. And I think some of that might have been at play too with Muhammad Ali and other people.
Hey, so I hate to do this to us, and we're not going to end the conversation, but perhaps it's time to say goodbye to the podcast. And
what's our time at?
The conversation. We're at 40 minutes.
40. Can I just wrap it up with one thing?
Sure.
To wrap it up with Ali, how he was sort of a trailblazer. A lot of people didn't realize that until later on. It took decades later to realize the impact that he had, the vision that he had. And I think the same could be said throughout history. So think of the figures right now who are revolutionaries, or who are thinking outside the box, who are trying to make an influence, but they're getting a lot of heat for that. People are like, you're crazy. That's never going to happen. 20 years from now, it's all going to be behind us. And like, oh my God, what a visionary, what a trailblazer. So keep an eye out for those people who have that sort of foresight, and try not to silence their vision. Right. Snowden, I will bring up Snowden, that it is similar in how much hate Ali got for what he did, is I think on par with what Snowden did. Because it elicits such a visceral reaction of like, oh my God, what a jerk, how could you go against the country, et cetera, et cetera. even a few years later, some people are trying to change their mind and their vision on what he represents. I won't go into it much more than that.
Right.
But time will tell. 15 years from now, we'll see who the heroes are and what the
Absolutely.
issues are.
And hopefully we'll celebrate them before death.
Hopefully, and hopefully whatever they're trying to get across, we learn from.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was good. 40 minutes goes by fast, guys. Thank you to everyone. This is the most viewers that we've had for a podcast. This is episode 3. We're going to keep trying to do this on a weekly basis, Thursdays at 7. And next week, we have our first guest who will be here in the 4th seat. Should we announce it now or keep it a secret?
We should just keep it a secret.
Okay, we have a guest coming in, and it'll be good. So from me, Candido, and Miguel, this has been episode 3 of the Super Bros podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
What time